Parents of Reddit, what's your best way to secretary? Is that my child? Moment. Most parent/teacher conferences. They describe how awesome my kids are and that they love having them in their classes. They then describe some of the exemplary behaviors they exhibit in class. I look at my wife and we both wonder why they can do it at school but act like barbarians at home. Sometimes they are legitimately so burned out from being good at school that all hell breaks loose once they're in the comfort of home. I read a book recently that went pretty in depth on causes of certain childhood behaviors, particularly in the child with AD. But I think many can apply to neurotypical children as well on some level, and this was one of them. The book theorizes that behaving well in public and awful at home can be a sign of good parenting. The child puts up defenses outside of the home because they don't feel as safe and don't let their full energy out. But when they get home and feel safe, they let loose everything they've been holding back. They are able to hold it in at school because they know they have an outlet available. I'm not explaining it well, as I'm just a layman, but I like the idea of this theory and I'm looking to do further research on it. Put my youngest in the bassinet in the kitchen and put the other kids down for naps. When I came back in the kitchen, I started to cook dinner, walked by the bassinet, and screamed because there was a baby there looking at me. Took a good 10 seconds to remember I gave birth to a third baby 4 weeks earlier. I needed more sleep. So many embarrassed parent moments, but what story comes to my mind is a different flavor than those. My daughter, now a strong woman at 22 years old, started life as a headstrong child, but after some bullying in grades 1 to 3, she retreated into a sad and withdrawn girl. We changed schools and started her in Taekwondo. Best decision we ever made. Years later, she is testing for her brown belt and needs to break a board. She chose an elbow thrust, not sure of official name but that's what it looked like. She had done it successfully in practice several times, but this board was stubborn. 10 times she hit that board, left a blood spot even. It didn't break. Applied ice on her bruised elbow that night along with hugs for bruised ego. Next CL Butch got up and elbow thrusted the board to splinters. I'm not a crier, but I teared up in that moment. I felt in my heart her physical and emotional pain facing that seemingly indestructible board. She faced it with the fear of further pain and failure. She got more than her brown belt that day. She found her resilience. She found her strength. She found her courage. She found her future. I sat in the viewing area and thought with wonder and excitement, that's my child. If that board wasn't breaking, the other person must have been holding it wrong. Those are made to break. You are right. The instructor told me much later that it should have broke with her first hit. I was at a children's museum with my 2 toddlers, about 2 years and 4 years. The younger one, my daughter, was playing in a communal area with some other small toddlers. I was sitting off to the side watching, but she was in her own world so no one could have known I belonged to her at that point. Another little girl walked up and started playing with the toys my daughter was using. My daughter slowly turned her head and the look I saw in her eyes was, well, calculated. She stared at the little girl for a moment, reached out, placed her hand on the girl's shoulder, then pushed hard and yelled no, mine, right in the girl's face, then turned back to the toys and began playing innocently. There was another mom sitting next to me that witnessed the entire event and I could see the judgment festering inside her. So I quietly said, oh man, whose kid is that? They should teach their kids some manners. The other mom definitely agreed and we sat there judging for a few more minutes until I got up, took my daughter's hand and walked away. No, I'm not a good parent sometimes. I don't know. Most 2-year-olds I have known would have whacked the other kid with a toy. At least yours used her words. Pretty impressive to me. But then, I was a middle school teacher and saw 11 to 14-year-olds without that much skill in conflict resolution. So maybe I'm not the best judge. I never was a big fan of forcing kids to hand over what they are playing with in the name of sharing. My kids are all relatively well-adjusted adults, so I guess I didn't do them too much harm by not forcing them to share everything and to use their words when they don't like what someone is doing. I do support for a smartphone manufacturer. Pretty sure that's on par with the conflict resolution skills of some of the grown adults I work with, although I'm certain that's only because they have yet to invent a way to punch someone over the phone lines. After 2 trips to Russia to meet my child and multiple visits to the orphanage, I had come to the conclusion that not only were the kids being neglected, but that the orphanage director had a particular dislike for my soon-to-be daughter. She kept telling me that she was a willful, she wasn't difficult, nope, not that either, child who needed discipline. Not from what I could see. All I saw was a very quiet and almost too complacent, sweet little girl who needed gentle encouraging just to interact with us, and we had done everything we could to patiently win her trust. During one visit, my little girl, a toddler at the time, became interested in my engagement ring. She kept looking at it, but never asked about it, and never touched it. At one point she was staring at it so keenly that I slipped it off my finger so she could try it on. I told her that one day she could have it, but when what I said was translated, the director audibly scoffed. During one of the last visits, the director told me that they worked hard to train the orphans in the baby home to sweep, mop, clean, and work for their parents, and that we Americans just wanted to spoil them. As she spoke, I just looked incredulously at this tiny creature, malnourished, with matted hair, smelling like urine, barely as high as my hip, and thought, lady, you have no idea, apostrophe. On the day the adoption was final, we rushed to the orphanage to pick up our daughter. It just so happened that there was also some sort of audit or visitation from some officials going on. I was over the moon happy, changed her into a new outfit, and we hastily said our farewells, because we were also picking up her brother whom we had also adopted, as we headed toward the exit, with my husband carrying my daughter who was understandably wide-eyed and quiet. But suddenly, she looked straight at the director and said something that caused the woman to look nervously side-eyed at the others. Since I could understand only a little of what she was saying, I asked the translator to translate. That lady is very, very mean. I thought my husband was going to trip. He was sputtering and snickering so hard. We got out of there in a hurry, but I remember thinking very proudly, that's my girl, apostrophe. She sounds like an amazing child. May I ask how she's doing now? She is willful, difficult and spoiled. Haha, just kidding. She and her brother are the joy of my life. She took to life like a fish to water and never looked back. She is thriving. In college. A volunteer working with young children in a local library. Loves to surf and run. Is crazy about her dogs. And has the quickest of wits. But we already knew that. Didn't we? Thank you for asking. I imagine for our mother it was my sister throat punching the dentist and telling them they have no idea what they're doing at 8 years old. I feel like there is a story here. Our son's in choir. Graduated high school earlier this year. Has an actor. Noodles on the guitar. A performer in general. Back in his junior year, one of his friends was graduating. And the seniors, if they want, get a solo at the final performance. So it's his friend's turn. And she has a piece to sing with our son on accompaniment. Cool. Cool. His mom and I say to each other, must be an acoustic guitar up there on stage. And help play that while he sings. But, no. He sits at the piano. And then proceeds to play the piano while she sings her piece. His mom and I just look at each other gobsmacked. Did you know? Question mark? Nope. No idea. Neither of us had any idea he knew how to play. Not exactly sure how he snuck that past us. We searched his bedroom. Found no hidden piano. He must be hanging out with the wrong crowd. Do any of his friends have a piano maybe? The backstage of the theater had one. Had been hanging out with friends there. We knew. Playing piano. We didn't. If you have a kid in dance you'll soon realize they all look the same. Same hair, makeup, costume etc. Marching band parents can absolutely relate. Mayo, my mom got mad at me when my posture suddenly improved. Because she could no longer pick out the kid in the clarinet section who's slouching as being me anymore. In 3rd grade my kid was in after school daycare that gave free guitar lessons. They held an end of term concert where kids got to show off what they learned. First kid gets up. Johnny will now play Yankee Doodle. Pluck pluck strum. Then we all clapped. Next kid gets up. Jimmy will play Twinkle Twinkle. Strum strum pluck. Then we all clapped. The concert went along like this. Kid songs. Kid strumming. Obligatory claps. My kid was last. Butt Rock Jr. will play Crazy Train by Ozzy Osbourne. The whole audience kinda chuckled in a WTF manner. Me included. Kid got up there in his button-up shirt and khakis. Totally nonchalant. He was so little that his feet barely touched the floor. He started with the songs beginning Dundons. And then Ducking Slayed It. Does your kid still play? He's in high school now. And he plays when he feels like it. Nothing too serious. He has this thing where he'll pick up a new stringed instrument, pluck for a bit, organize his brain, and then play it like has done it before. It's pretty ridiculous. Not me but my dad with his first family. He was driving home from work one evening, and as he exits the highway, he sees a toddler wearing nothing but a diaper walking down the side of the road. He thinks, Jesus Christ, what kind of parent would let their kid do something like that? So he pulls over and gets the kid. It was his kid. She had snuck out of the house when her mom's back was turned. Mom was hysterical and the police were already there when he got home. Baby's day out. I had the opposite. I was crossing the street and watched my parents run a red light and almost kill a guy who was walking ahead of me. It was insane because they weren't even in our town and I had no idea why they were there or what their excuse was. They were definitely distracted and asking, hey, is that our child over there? Yep. And we missed. So, I'm not a parent, but I think I can share this story anyways. A couple of years ago, there was a house that the youth used as a gathering place. So after the local authorities decided to sell it, a lot of young people took to the streets where they, among other things, tried keeping people away from the house by throwing things like bricks at them. One evening there was a live reporting on the news, and my mom was watching. We suddenly heard her yelling, "Come quick." We went and saw my older sister running from a duo of cops. She lifted a cell phone to her ear, and then my mom's phone rang. The funniest part was my mom's initial advice, which was to run like hell. Apostrophe. She got away. When my wife was giving birth, real talk, I literally watched my child come out of me. Doctor had the nurse hold up a mirror so I could see, and I still have a hard time believing she's mine. Aren't you quite the masochist? I want to watch as this parasite that has been steadily growing inside of me literally tears its way out of my vagina, leaving nothing but a trail disaster and pile of fecal matter on the floor in its wake. My ex and I were sitting on the couch, a month into a crying, colicky, insomniac child. I looked over and said, "No one is coming to get her, are they?" And he said, "No, we aren't babysitting." Then I knew. I cried. I wish I could hug you. I had the same realization a few weeks after my son was born. I was sitting on the couch, hurting because I tore during labor. Fresh spit up on my shirt, and I had this crystal clear thought. His mom and dad aren't coming to get him at the end of the day. We are his mom and dad. This is a life now. In my case it was more the surreal experience of having a tiny human in the house than like PPD or a difficult baby. But it was sobering to have the weight of it all settle in all at once. I hope things are better for you now. Went to an outdoor community festival some years ago. I believe my daughter was 4 at the time. At one point I lost her and started getting a little frantic until my son realized she was up on stage pretending she was Miley Cyrus or something, mouthing, "Thank you, everyone," to the crowd. I'm not a parent, but back when I was like 6 or 7, I had this really special leaf, and a friend of mine ripped it up in front of me in a kind of like, "You don't really think this leaf is important, right?" Apparently, that was the wrong thing to do. I wrote them the nastiest note and stuck in their lunchbox before going about my day like nothing had happened. Of course, the principal found out about it and told my parents. They were like, "Are you sure it was my kid?" Cause I was like the sweetest kid at school. But nope, 100% me, baby. Now, instead of explaining to me that writing those kinds of notes was bad and teaching me how to better express my emotions, or at least not hurt anybody with them, I was forced to write an apology card like 5 times over because I wasn't sorry enough. All that taught me was not to write mean letters to people. So thanks. My old elementary school. My kid anytime we travel. Got off a 5-hour flight, and I'm in awe of how well behaved he is on airplanes. Strangers compliment us. Trying to put him in his car seat to go to the airport, he socked me in the face. I'm so confused sometimes. Better to get punched by a kid before the flight than 5 hours of screaming in a flying tin can. My 5-year-old is very much into art. Her art has typically been better than her peers by quite a bit, but it still looks like a child did it. Yesterday she worked with clay for the first time and made a My Little Pony. When my wife sent me a picture, I could not believe it. I would have suspected my wife would have helped out, but it was way beyond anything she could have done. My 5-year-old's My Little Pony kid was something a talented teenager would have done. My kid made a teeny tiny unicorn from baby bell cheese wax. My son's favorite movie when he was 4 was Braveheart. In Walmart I hear people laughing, and then very loudly, "Our freedom," as my kid in his best William Wallace runs down the aisle with a pool noodle aloft. Not really related. My physical therapist said while in school he was helping out with a women's lacrosse team. One of the girls dislocated a knee and screamed freedom over and over again instead of, you know, the other F word, fondue. Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe for more videos.